I came to England from Romania, carrying more hope than fear and more trust than caution. Back home, life was simple and familiar. I lived in a modest apartment on a quiet street where neighbors knew one another by name and mornings smelled of bread from the corner bakery. I had never traveled far alone before. England was different. It felt big, distant, and important. But I wasn't going there blindly. My sister was already there. She worked in London, and to me that meant safety. As long as she was there, I believed nothing bad could happen. The purpose of my visit was simple and innocent. I was coming to spend time with my sister, to rest, to see the city she often described over the phone, to escape my routine for a while. She had promised to show me London properly: parks, music, crowds, places I had only seen in pictures. I trusted her completely. I trusted the plan. Before I left Romania, we spoke many times about my arrival. She warned me she wouldn't be able to pick me up from the airport because of work, but she sounded confident, calm, reassuring. She explained everything carefully. She wrote her work address on a piece of paper, folded it neatly, and told me exactly what to do. "Book a cab at the airport," she said. "Come straight to my workplace. It's easy." I folded that paper like it was something precious. I put it in my bag and checked for it over and over again. That piece of paper felt like a lifeline. As long as I had it, I believed I would be fine. Saying goodbye at the airport in Romania felt heavier than I expected. My family hugged me tightly. My mother looked at me longer than usual, as if trying to memorize my face. I smiled to reassure her, pretending I wasn't nervous. Inside, my heart was beating fast, not from fear, but from anticipation. The flight was long and exhausting. I barely slept. My thoughts drifted between excitement and quiet anxiety. I kept replaying my sister's instructions in my head, holding on to them like a script. Every time I reached into my bag and touched the folded paper, I felt calmer. When the plane finally began its descent into England, clouds surrounded us like thick gray walls. The sky looked heavy, unfamiliar. I told myself it didn't matter. I was only a cab ride away from my sister. I had no idea that this belief, that simple trust, was about to lead me into the most dangerous experience of my life. The cabin lights dimmed and brightened, meals were served and taken away, and time lost its meaning somewhere above the clouds. My body was tired, but my mind refused to rest. Every time I closed my eyes, my thoughts went back to the same place: arrival. What it would feel like, what I would do first, how I would find my sister. I replayed her voice in my head again and again, as if she were sitting beside me. "Just book a cab at the airport," she had said calmly. "Come straight to my workplace. I'll be waiting for you." Her words had sounded so simple, so safe. I reached into my handbag and felt for the folded piece of paper. Even without opening it, I knew exactly what was written there. Her work address, the street name, the building number. I had checked it so many times before leaving home that it was burned into my memory. Still, touching it reassured me. It was proof that I wasn't alone in this journey. Around me, other passengers slept, watched movies, or stared blankly ahead. I wondered where they were going, who was waiting for them. I imagined my sister standing somewhere in London, working, glancing at the clock, thinking about me. The thought made me smile despite my nerves. Trust filled me completely. Trust in my sister. Trust in the plan. Trust that the moment I landed, everything would fall into place. I believed that the hardest part was already over, that the flight was the challenge, and the rest would be easy. As the plane began to descend, my ears popped and my stomach tightened. I pressed my forehead against the window and watched the thick gray clouds swirl beneath us. England was there, hidden behind them. A new place. A new experience. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "You'll be fine. Just follow the plan." The moment I stepped off the plane, I felt it. The cold. It cut through my jacket instantly, sharp and unexpected. Back home in Romania, the air had been familiar, gentle. Here, the air felt heavy, damp, and gray. Rain tapped softly against the glass walls of the airport, and the sky outside looked like it had no color at all. The airport was massive, far larger than anything I had known. Voices echoed in different accents, Footsteps rushed past me from every direction. Announcements boomed overhead in a language that suddenly sounded faster and harder to understand than I expected. My body was there, but my mind was still somewhere in the clouds. Jet lag wrapped around me like a fog. My head felt light, my legs heavy. I followed the sign slowly, dragging my suitcase behind me, trying not to look lost even though I felt completely disoriented. Excitement and fear tangled inside my chest. I was happy I had made it. I was in London. But beneath that excitement was something else. A quiet anxiety. A feeling I couldn't name yet. I checked my phone instinctively, even though I already knew what I would see. No missed calls. No messages. My sister was at work, just as she had warned me. She couldn't leave. She couldn't come. I reminded myself of her voice, calm and confident.
"Don't worry," she had said.
"Just book a cab and come straight to my workplace." I stood near the exit for a moment, watching people reunite. Hugs, laughter, familiar faces meeting in relief. I felt a small ache in my chest. No one was waiting for me. I was on my own now. I tightened my grip on my bag, reminding myself that I had everything I needed. My passport, my suitcase, the address written on paper, the plan. I took a deep breath, and I made the decision that would change everything. I stepped forward, alone, trusting that following the instructions would be enough. I wish I could say I sensed the danger immediately, but I didn't. I stood just outside the terminal doors, the cold wrapping tighter around my body, rain soaking into the edges of my shoes. People moved quickly past me, rolling suitcases, talking into phones, laughing, complaining. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. I didn't. I looked around for signs, for instructions, for something familiar. My phone battery was already lower than I expected. The airport Wi-Fi was slow. My hands were shaking slightly, partly from the cold, partly from exhaustion, partly from the weight of being alone in a place that suddenly felt far bigger than I was. That was when he spoke to me. Taxi. The word came from behind me. I turned and saw a man standing just a little too close. He wore a dark jacket and held his hand out casually, like this was something he did every day. His accent was thick. I recognized English, but the words felt rushed, clipped, unfamiliar. I hesitated. "I need a cab," I said carefully, my own accent heavy in my mouth. "To this address." I pulled the folded paper from my bag, the one my sister had written for me before I left home. He glanced at it quickly, barely reading it, and nodded. Yes, yes. I take you. No problem." Something in me paused. I remembered my sister's voice again. Book a cab. She hadn't said follow someone. But standing there, cold and tired, the airport now behind me and the open night in front of me, the fear of being stranded took over. What if I do something wrong? I thought. What if I can't find the right place? What if I get stuck here alone? The man noticed my hesitation. "Very cold," he said, gesturing toward the parking area.
"Come."
"Car just there." He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He didn't look dangerous. That's what scares me the most now. People always imagine danger as loud, aggressive, obvious. But this felt quiet, normal, almost helpful. I followed him. The car was parked further away than I expected, not in the main taxi line. I noticed it only briefly. My suitcase was already being placed in the trunk before I fully processed what was happening. I opened the back door and got in. The moment the door shut, something inside me shifted. The sound was too heavy, too final. The locks clicked. My heart skipped, not dramatically, not at first, but enough for me to notice. The car started moving immediately, pulling away before I had even fastened my seatbelt properly. I watched the airport lights fade through the window, and suddenly, I felt very small. The road felt wrong. I had no map open, no signal strong enough to guide me, but I could feel it. The turns were too sharp. The streets too narrow. The buildings passing by didn't look like the city my sister had described. There were fewer lights, less traffic. Long stretches of silence broken only by the sound of tires against wet asphalt. I tried to speak. "Excuse me, where are we going?" He didn't answer right away. My stomach tightened. I said, "Where are we going?" I repeated, my voice quieter now. "Shortcut," he said finally, without looking back. "Traffic." I nodded, even though fear had begun to creep into my chest. I told myself not to overreact. I told myself I was tired. I told myself this was just a different country, different routes, different ways of doing things. But my body didn't believe the lies. Every instinct I had was awake now. My hands clenched in my lap. My eyes stayed glued to the windows, searching for something familiar, something safe. But the streets only grew darker. The buildings more unfamiliar. The silence heavier. I tried my phone. No signal. I tried again. Nothing. The car slowed suddenly, then turned sharply into a road that looked almost empty. That was the moment fear stopped being a thought and became a presence sitting right beside me. The car kept moving. That was the worst part. As long as it was moving, I didn't know where I was going or how far away I was being taken from everything I knew. The streets outside the window no longer looked like a city I recognized from pictures or stories. They were narrow, poorly lit, lined with buildings that leaned close to the road like they were watching me pass. I tried to memorize landmarks. A bridge, a closed shop, a flickering streetlight, anything. But everything blurred together, and fear made my thoughts scatter.
My heart was pounding now. Loud. Fast.
I could hear it in my ears. "Please," I said softly, leaning forward just a little. "This doesn't look right." The driver didn't respond. Instead, the car slowed again, then stopped. My breath caught in my throat. He turned his head slightly, just enough for me to see his eyes in the mirror. There was no friendliness left in them. No patience. Just something cold and calculating.
"Phone," he said.
I didn't understand at first. "Your phone," he repeated, his voice sharper now. "Give me." Fear froze me in place. "I need it," I whispered. "My sister." Before I could finish, his hand shot back toward me. Not violent, not yet, but forceful enough to make me flinch. I handed it over with shaking fingers. The moment my phone left my hand, I felt completely cut off from the world. He placed it in the front seat, out of my reach. The car moved again. My thoughts spiraled. This isn't a mistake. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is happening. "Open your bag," he said. My chest tightened. "Why?" He slammed the brakes slightly, not enough to crash, but enough to make my body jerk forward.
"Open."
The bag. My hands trembled as I pulled it onto my lap. I could barely feel my fingers as I unzipped it. He reached back, rummaging through my belongings without permission, without care. My wallet was taken first. Cash. Every pound I had exchanged before the trip, gone in seconds. My passport remained, but only because I clutched it tightly against my chest, silently praying he wouldn't notice. Then his hand found the folded paper. The address. The one thing tying me to my sister. He unfolded it, stared at it briefly, then laughed, short, cruel, dismissive. He tore it once, twice, and dropped the pieces onto the floor of the car. "No need," he said. Something inside me broke. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just cried. Silent tears ran down my face as I pressed my forehead against the cold window. I felt stupid. I felt naive. I felt like every sacrifice I had made to get here had been reduced to this moment. Helpless, powerless, invisible. The car kept moving. Time lost meaning. Minutes felt like hours. Every turn made me feel farther from safety. I thought of my sister, waiting, checking her phone, wondering why I hadn't arrived yet. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to wake up. I wanted someone to find me. Finally, the car slowed again. This time, it stopped completely.
"Get out," he said. I didn't understand.
He opened the door from the inside, shoved my bag into my hands, and pushed me out onto the pavement. The rain had started again, heavier now. The cold bit harder. The car drove off before I could even stand properly. And just like that, I was alone. No phone. No money. No address. No idea where I was. I stood there shaking, crying openly now, surrounded by a city that didn't know me and didn't care. That was when the full weight of it hit me. I had survived the car, but I had no idea how I would survive what came next. I don't know how long I walked. Time stopped behaving normally after that. Minutes stretched into something shapeless, and hours slipped by without warning. All I knew was that my legs kept moving because stopping felt even more dangerous than walking. The streets changed again and again. Narrow roads opened into wider ones, then shrank back into alleys that smelled of damp concrete and old rain. My suitcase rolled behind me, its wheels rattling loudly, announcing my presence to a city that felt indifferent to my fear. I tried to ask for help. That was harder than I expected. I stopped strangers, people rushing home, couples walking together, a man unlocking his bicycle. Each time, I opened my mouth and felt the words collapse inside me. I need help, I said to one woman, my voice trembling. I'm lost. She slowed down, listened for a second, then frowned. My accent tangled my sentences. My English felt suddenly small, insufficient. Where are you staying? She asked. I froze. I didn't know how to answer. I shook my head, embarrassed, frustrated, close to tears. She apologized quietly and walked away. Not unkindly, just unable to help. I tried again, and again. Some people avoided my eyes. Others listened but didn't understand. A few looked at me with suspicion, like I was a problem they didn't want to carry home with them. With every failed attempt, my chest grew tighter. The cold seeped deeper into my body. My jacket wasn't enough anymore. My fingers felt stiff. My feet ached. Hunger made my stomach cramp sharply, reminding me that I hadn't eaten since the flight.
And still I walked.
At some point, my breathing changed. Shallow.
Fast.
My heart began racing again, the same way it had in the car. The panic returned. Suddenly, I wasn't on the street anymore. I was back in the cab. I could hear the locks clicking. I could feel the seat beneath me, the pressure in my chest, the fear curling inside my stomach. I stopped walking, bent forward slightly, gripping my knees, gasping for air.
People passed me.
No one stopped. Tears blurred my vision as I tried to steady myself. I whispered to myself in my own language, repeating words that usually calmed me. You are here. You are alive.
Keep going.
I forced myself upright. The sky had grown darker now. Streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows that stretched and moved like living things. Every car that slowed near me made my body tense. Every unfamiliar voice sent a jolt through my nerves. I began to feel unsafe everywhere. I didn't know which direction was right, so every direction felt wrong. At some point, I sat down on a low wall near a row of houses. My suitcase stood beside me like the only companion I had left. I stared at my hands, watching them shake. That's when I realized how exhausted I was. Not just tired, empty, emotionally drained, physically weak, mentally overwhelmed. I felt like I had used up every ounce of strength I had brought with me from home. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know where to go. And worst of all, I didn't know if anyone was looking for me. I didn't see my sister in those hours. But later, when she told me what she had been living through at the same time, it felt like we had been sharing the same fear from opposite ends of the city. She said she checked her phone constantly at work. At first, she wasn't worried. Flights get delayed. Airports are confusing. She told herself I was probably just stuck in traffic or struggling with the app or waiting in line somewhere. But as the minutes turned into an hour, and the hour turned into 2, her calm began to break.
She called me. Once. Twice.
Again and again. No answer. She sent messages. Short ones at first. Then longer ones. Then frantic ones. Where are you? Did you get in a cab?
Please answer me.
Her hands shook as she refreshed her screen over and over, watching nothing change. She tried to leave work, but couldn't. She begged for permission, explained, apologized. When she finally stepped outside, the cold hit her just like it had hit me, but she didn't feel it. Fear had already taken over her body. She blamed herself immediately. I shouldn't have let her come alone. I should have taken the day off. I should have gone to the airport myself. Every possible mistake replayed in her head like a punishment. As the sky grew darker, her thoughts grew darker too. She imagined me lost. She imagined me scared. She imagined things she was afraid to name. Finally, unable to sit with the fear any longer, she went to the police station near her workplace. She walked in shaking, struggling to explain through tears that her sister had just arrived in the country, that she had sent her alone, that she hadn't heard from her in hours. She kept repeating one sentence. She would never disappear like this. The officers listened carefully, asking questions she struggled to answer. What time had I landed? What route was I supposed to take? What taxi company? She didn't know. That made the fear worse. As she left the station, waiting for instructions, waiting for something, anything, she felt completely helpless. And while she was standing there, praying for a miracle, I was still out there, walking,
Cold. Lost.
and unknowingly getting closer to the moment that would bring our two nightmares together. I had stopped counting the hours, or maybe I had stopped counting entirely. The city had become a blur of gray walls, wet pavement, and endless streets that all looked the same. My stomach ached from hunger, my feet were sore, and my hands were numb from the cold. Each step felt heavier than the last, and I could feel panic tightening its grip around my chest again. That's when someone noticed me. A woman stepped out of a small corner shop, wiping her hands on a towel. She had been watching me for a while, she later told me, because I had been standing too long in the same place, moving uncertainly, carrying my suitcase like I might collapse at any moment. "You all right, miss?" she asked, concern threading her voice. I opened my mouth, tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. My accent, my fear, my exhaustion, they all mixed together into a quiet, confused stammer. I wanted to explain everything, the cab, the stolen money, the torn paper, but it all came out in fragments. Lost taxi, sister, address, can't find. The woman's face darkened with worry. She could see it in my eyes, in the way I shivered uncontrollably. She made a quick decision. She called the police. When the sirens arrived minutes later, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief.
Yes.
But also fear. Police officers had authority I didn't understand fully, authority that could be intimidating, especially to a foreigner alone in a strange city. Two officers approached me, calm but firm. They spoke slowly, asking me to step aside, to explain myself. I nodded, trying to appear composed, but my knees shook as I followed them to the car. The moment the car doors closed behind me, I realized I was leaving the streets I didn't know, the rain-soaked alleys, the empty city corners where I had felt invisible. But I was also leaving the little control I had left. I was afraid, terrified even. But buried beneath the fear was a fragile thread of hope. For the first time in hours, I wasn't alone. Someone finally was listening, and maybe, just maybe, this nightmare could end. The car moved toward the station, and I clutched my bag against my chest. Every instinct told me to be cautious, to hold back tears, to protect myself. But my shoulders sagged, and I let a few escape anyway. I had survived the cab. I had survived the dark streets. And now, somehow, I was on my way to safety, even if I didn't yet know what that would look like. The station smelled like disinfectant and old paper. The doors closed behind me with a dull, echoing sound that made my heart jump. Even though I knew I was safe, safer than I had been all day, my body didn't know how to relax. My shoulders were tense, my hands still shaking as I was guided to a chair. "Sit here," one of the officers said gently. I sat. And that was when everything I had been holding inside finally broke loose. Tears came first. Silent at the beginning, then uncontrollable. My chest shook as I tried to breathe through them, embarrassed but unable to stop. I had been strong for so long. Through the flight, through the cab, through the streets, but now there was nowhere left to run. They gave me tissues. A cup of water.
Time.
When they asked me to speak, I tried. I really tried. I told them about arriving in London, about my sister, about the address she had written for me. About the man who said he was a cab driver. My sentences were broken, tangled with pauses and apologies. Sometimes I had to stop completely just to breathe. I don't have my phone, I said, my voice cracking. He took it. They asked for numbers. I had none. They asked for an address. I shook my head. They asked for a name. I could only give my sister's first name, spoken softly, like saying it too loudly might make it disappear. The officers exchanged glances. They were kind, patient, but I could see it in their faces, the problem. There was nothing solid to hold on to. No phone, no paper, no address, no leads. I felt the hope I had just begun to build slipping again. I wrapped my arms around myself, staring at the floor, feeling small and foolish. I had crossed borders and oceans, only to sit in a chair in a police station, unable to prove who I was waiting for, or why. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I know. One officer shook his head. "You're not in trouble," he said. "We just need something. Anything." I searched my memory desperately, replaying my sister's voice over and over in my mind. Her instructions, her reassurance, her laughter. Nothing clear came. The room felt heavier by the minute. I thought of my sister, still waiting, still calling, still blaming herself. I wondered if she thought I had abandoned her, if she was crying somewhere, just as lost as I felt. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt truly hopeless. I had survived danger, but now I didn't know how I would get out of this. I don't know what made it surface. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was my sister's voice echoing again and again in my head. Or maybe it was the simple truth that when you have nothing left, the mind searches deeper than it ever has before. I was staring at the floor when it happened. A word. Just one. It slipped into my thoughts quietly, like it had been waiting for me to finally stop panicking long enough to hear it. I lifted my head slowly. I remember something," I said. Every movement in the room paused. The officer leaned forward. "What do you remember?" "It's not the full address," I said quickly, afraid it would disappear again. "But my sister works near a place. Or maybe in a place." The name was... I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my temple. My heart pounded. "Camden," I whispered. "Camden. I think Camden Market. Or near it." The officers exchanged looks again, but this time, something changed. "Camden," one of them repeated, already turning toward a computer. They asked me everything I could remember. What kind of place she worked in, what time she usually finished, how long she had been in the country. I answered as best I could, my words steadier now, hope flickering back to life. Another officer asked for my passport. My hands shook as I handed it over. They checked my name, my nationality. Then one of them said something that made my breath catch. "We'll confirm your flight." They left me alone in the room while they worked. Minutes passed. Every second felt heavy. I stared at the door, afraid to hope too much, afraid to believe this could actually end well. I replayed everything I had said, wondering if I had made a mistake, if I had remembered wrong. Then the door opened. The officer smiled. It was small, professional, but unmistakably real. "Your flight landed today," he said. "From Bucharest. Everything matches." My chest collapsed inward, then expanded again as I gasped for air. Tears filled my eyes, this time different from before. These weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. They believed me. I wasn't just a lost foreigner anymore. I was a person with a story that made sense. A woman who had told the truth. "We're locating your sister now," the officer said. "We'll find her." I pressed my hands together, whispering a thank you I wasn't sure anyone heard. For the first time since landing in England, I felt something close to safety. The moment the station doors opened, I knew it was her. I had only seen her in pictures, on video calls, and in my memory, but there was no mistaking the way she moved, the way she scanned the room anxiously, the way her eyes searched every face until they found mine. "Tina," she called out, her voice trembling. I couldn't move at first. My body froze. My legs felt weak. And then, like a dam breaking, I ran toward her. She dropped her bag instantly and wrapped her arms around me. Her embrace was fierce, desperate, and I buried my face in her shoulder, shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down my cheeks, matching hers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered repeatedly. "I should have been there. I should have picked you up. I should have." I clutched her tightly, shaking my head. "It's not your fault, it's not your fault," I gasped. We stood there for what felt like hours, swaying slightly, holding onto each other as if letting go could undo the fact that we were finally together. The station around us blurred. The officers gave us space, watching quietly, knowing nothing could be said to lessen the emotional weight of the moment. My knees gave way, and I collapsed slightly into her arms, completely exhausted. The fear, the cold, the hunger, the terror from the cab, the streets, the hours of wandering, it all came flooding back in a wave. But now it was met with something else.
Safety. Love.
Presence. My sister was here, and she wouldn't let go. I thought I lost you," she sobbed. "You didn't," I whispered, finally feeling it, the first real, deep breath I had taken in hours. "I'm here." And in that moment, the nightmare that had begun the moment I stepped off the plane began to lift. I was safe at last. After the reunion, my sister insisted I come straight to her apartment. The streets of London no longer felt threatening, not with her by my side, but the memory of the cab and the endless wandering lingered like shadows clinging to my skin. Once inside, she wrapped me in a warm blanket, the smell of her home familiar and grounding. She made tea, strong and sweet, and placed a plate of food in front of me. I could barely eat, but the act of trying felt like a small step back toward normalcy. Every sip, every bite, was a reminder that I was alive, that I had survived. We sat together for hours, talking quietly. She listened while I described every terrifying moment: the cab, the theft, the streets, the fear that had frozen me. I told her about the cold, the hunger, the panic that had made me almost give up. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just held my hand, squeezed it, and let me speak. The police later followed up. They confirmed my sister's workplace, my flight records, and the statements from the cab driver's brief tracking. Even though I was safe, I realized the legal side of what had happened would linger. It was overwhelming, but I didn't have to face it alone. Sleep came slowly. My body wanted it desperately, but my mind kept replaying the danger, the uncertainty, the hours I thought I might never escape. Every creak of the apartment floor, every car outside, reminded me of the fear I had endured. Yet, slowly, I began to breathe more easily. My sister stayed close. We laughed softly over small things, the way the kettle whistled, the silly British words she used, a minor mishap with the tea. These small moments reminded me that the world could be safe, that warmth existed even in a city that had tried to hurt me. Even as the trauma lingered, the comfort of family, the restoration of routine, and the knowledge that I was no longer alone became the first steps toward healing. The shadows of fear were still there, but now I had someone to face them with me. The next day, my sister insisted we explore the city. "You came all this way," she said. "Let's not waste it." We started at a nearby stadium, a place she loved and thought I would enjoy. The crowd was enormous, the cheers and chants filling the air. I smiled. I laughed. On the surface, I was thrilled. The energy was infectious, and I wanted to feel it. I really did. But underneath it all, I felt a low hum of tension. Every loud cheer, every sudden shout, every horn outside reminded me of the cab. My heart skipped. My hands tightened around the seat or her arm. For a moment, I could feel the panic return, the claustrophobic fear, the helplessness of being trapped, alone, unseen. Next, we walked through a sprawling park. The greenery, the calm pond, children laughing. It should have soothed me. And for brief moments it did. But as soon as someone jogged past too fast, or a bicycle whizzed near, I tensed again. My mind replayed the streets, the unknown roads, the dark alleys. We went to a concert in the evening. The music was loud, intoxicating, thrilling, but every beat also pulsed with anxiety inside me. I had wanted to enjoy the performance fully, to let the music drown out the fear, but I couldn't shake the memory of being cornered, taken, powerless. We visited famous landmarks, the Tower of London, the London Eye, the bridges. Pictures, laughter, souvenirs. My sister was glowing with excitement, proud to show me her city. I tried to match her energy, but a part of me remained cautious, scanning streets, doors, and crowds for danger. Even in moments of fun, I realized I couldn't fully trust the city. I couldn't trust strangers. Every sudden noise, every car braking, every shout in the distance pulled me back to that first terrifying night. The joy was real, but it was incomplete. The fear lingered in the corners of my mind. I wanted to let go. I wanted to live fully, but the memory of what had happened, the cab, the theft, the wandering, the helplessness, shadowed every step. London had offered me adventure and wonder, but it had also reminded me how fragile safety could feel in a city that was unfamiliar. And for the rest of my visit, I carried both feelings, the joy of being with my sister and the lingering weight of fear that refused to leave. By the time my visit was coming to an end, I had seen London in ways I could never have imagined. I had walked its streets with laughter and wonder, marveled at its landmarks, breathed in its music and energy. My sister had shown me kindness, warmth, and patience. There were moments I will always treasure. The quiet strolls through the park, the dizzying views from the eye, the thrill of cheering in a crowded stadium. And yet, I cannot pretend that the fear I endured on my first night simply vanished. It stayed with me, like a shadow clinging to the edges of every memory. I realized that no matter how beautiful the city was, no matter how much joy I experienced, it had forever marked me. I would never forget the feeling of being alone, lost, and helpless. I learned lessons that are impossible to teach. The world can feel safe one moment and dangerous the next. Trust must be earned, and caution is never wasted. I learned the fragility of plans, the vulnerability of being far from home, and the immense value of those who care for us. To anyone hearing this story, I offer a warning. Travel with awareness. Trust your instincts. Protect your information, your contacts, and your surroundings. But also remember this, there is always hope. There is always a way back to safety, even when it seems impossible. I am grateful. Grateful for the strangers who noticed me. Grateful for the police who helped me. Grateful for my sister, whose love never faltered. And most of all, grateful for survival, for the ability to sit here now and tell this story, to warn others, and to carry forward the lessons of a city that taught me both wonder and fear in equal measure. London gave me adventure and excitement, yes, but it also gave me fear, courage, and the profound understanding of how fragile safety can be. And that combination has forever changed the way I see the world and myself.